Hello everyone and welcome back to another lecture on syntax. In the previous lecture, we talked about clauses and we divided up clauses into two types, tensed and non-tensed clauses. In this lecture, we'll look at clauses from a different point of view. Now, clauses can be broken down into mainly two types, main clauses and embedded clauses. Another name for the main clause is the root clause or the matrix clause. Another name for the embedded clause is the subordinate clause. Now, the embedded clause has three different types based on what they function as in a sentence. So just like phrases, they can be specifiers, they can be complements, and they can be adjuncts as well. Let's see what a clause would look like in a specifier position. Here's one example. This entire clause here functions as the subject of a bigger clause. This bigger clause here is the sentence, but it's also one type of clauses we talked about. It's the main clause or the root or matrix clause. Our subject clause here is in specifier position. Specifier of what? That's specifier of TP, and it is an embedded or subordinate clause. Here's an example of an adjunct clause. The man I saw at the bus stop robbed the bank. This is our embedded clause. In particular, it is an adjunct in a larger NP. This type of clause here is actually a relative clause. It's a type of clause that's used to give extra information about the head noun, information that is not necessary. Therefore, it is an adjunct. Next up is the complement clause. Peter said that Danny danced. So now this clause here, again, is a subordinate clause in the larger matrix or root clause, which is the sentence, and it is a clear complement to the verb in the root or the matrix clause. So now the question is, how do we embed these clauses into our trees? First off, a clause or an embedded clause is a CP. A CP is made up out of C, or some people write comp, short for complementizer, and a TP, which is what we know is a sentence. Inside the TP is what we normally get, the DP and the VP. So this is where you would get the complementizer itself, like that or if. Alright? Now, where do these fall within the sentence or within the matrix clause? Now, within any sentence, there are three locations that correspond to the three types of clauses we talked about. Now, they can either occur in this position and function as specifier, something like the subject of the sentence. In this case, we would get, instead of a DP here, we would get a CP with a C. And if we were to continue with X bar theory, then we want to also give it a specifier and give it a C bar and then a TP, like so. But for now, let's just focus on their locations. Now, we can also get the CP as an adjunct, most likely within a DP, within a noun phrase within a DP. And again, notice here that it is sister to a bar level. This is to make sure that it is an adjunct. Last but not least, it could be in complement position. Notice here that it is sister to the head, and therefore it is a complement. So now we've seen the three different types based on how they function within the sentence. That, as we've seen, one could be a specifier, the other could be an adjunct, and there's also the complement. We've seen where each one could occur within the sentence or within the phrase. We've also seen some examples of each, and we've seen inside the CP itself. Now, we did claim that this was not the final picture of what a CP looks like, but you can imagine for now, and we'll get back to more on this topic in the next lecture, but for now you can try just to imagine, using what we know so far about X bar, that it's going to need a specifier and a bar level, and then the head. And this head would take as complement a TP. So consider this an introduction to the next lecture. See you guys there.